Hello, so I started my PhD in October, and before then I hadn't lived in London before, but I had visited quite a few friends who undergraduate and masters in London kind of before that point, so I had a little bit of an idea of what it was going to be like. So I'm going to kind of go through some of the benefits of just living in London full stop, and a couple of benefits that are specifically to do with either studying at undergraduate or studying at PhD. So the first one I wanted to talk to you about is being in London gives you such an incredible access to kind of a wealth of opportunities. There's so many employers in London, and so many of them will actually engage with the universities. They'll be sending recruiters around, they'll be holding job fairs. Those kind of things don't necessarily exist in the same quantity when you are at maybe more regional. Some of the bigger cities like Birmingham probably do still have that kind of industry involvement. But one thing I've noticed, especially at my uni, is just how much of an emphasis there is on being job ready. You know, here's all the internship opportunities that are available to you. The other thing is, if you're in the University of London group, there's a lot of exchange of resources. There's a couple of courses which everyone can kind of access, and also you feel like you're part of the community. So you've got University College London, you've got Culinary, you've got King's College London. And there's a whole list, I think there's 17 in total. But having that kind of crazy group means that there's lots of people studying, and there's lots of people studying the same subject as you, maybe spread out across all of these universities. But there's a really amazing level of communication across them. There's also, this kind of manifests in kind of an actual tangible benefit, because you can go to their library spaces. If you live close to a gym but you're not actually a member of that university, but you want to use that university gym, you can use it kind of through that. So all of these different spaces that are across London then become accessible to you. Sometimes it's a bit of paperwork to actually get the access, but it's something that is a real asset. So you're not only going to one university, you have the opportunity to enjoy all of the universities of London. And especially with stuff like courses, they might be hosted at UCL, or they might be hosted at King's, and you would go to these lectures. Maybe they're a one-off, maybe they're like a series of them, but you go to lectures across the whole kind of city of London, which is really enjoyable, and it kind of gives you a little bit of variety. And also part of that is the public transport is so easy to use, and it's reliable, especially compared to, like buses in regional areas. It is really well connected, they're quick. If there's like a 1 minute delay on the tube driver will come up and be saying, oh, here's why there's a 1 minute delay and we'll be off shortly. So it's really good communication between the drivers and the kind of tube passengers, at least in my opinion. And there's also quite a good network of buses, so you can kind of get around the city, and there's definitely like no need for a car. So the next thing is, there's so many free museums. So there's Natural History Museum, the V&A, there's loads of them, and you can access their exhibits for free. There's a couple of like paid special exhibits that are only there for a short period of time, like £5-10 entry fee kind of, but you can enjoy so much of the museum for free. You can just kind of walk in off the street. A lot of them you don't actually need to book, especially when it's not like Easter holidays or anything like that. So you can just go, you can look at all the exhibits, you can spend, a day there, an hour there. And because you're living in London, you kind of don't have this touristy pressure to, I need to go to the museum, spend the whole day there, eat my lunch there, and kind of get taken in with all the stuff that can make those kind of trips expensive. You can just go in, explore, take pictures of whatever you want, and if there's something you want to see more of, you can kind of spend a whole day in one of the kind of wings of the museum. On top of that, there is something called Science Museum Late, which is kind of, I think it starts at 6 p.m, and it's kind of one day every month. They'll have like this kind of festival of science. There might be science fiction writers there talking about something. All of these kind of different events happen. It's free to access. They sometimes do silent discos, quizzes, all this kind of engagement, and it's really fun. And it's not something I've really seen outside of London, this kind of additional opening of museums in the evening and stuff like that. There's also such a range of restaurants, it can kind of be overwhelming at times. You've got every different cuisine you could imagine is spread out across the whole city of London. So it might be your area doesn't have what you're looking for, but because the public transport is so good, you can kind of go, okay, I'll go over to Angel and I'll try this Korean place, or I'll go over to Spitalfields Market and have something there. There's so many different places that you can go to get food, and obviously the price varies a lot, but the range is really the benefit there. Again, traveling to London-based conferences. So if you weren't based in London, the kind of effort to get to London can be kind of costly, especially if there's train tickets involved. But when you're based in London, if you see something the week before and you think it looks good, you can kind of just attend it. So like the other week I got an email saying there's going to be this conference on, day conference, turn up, register here. And I did it, and then I get to go, and then it's all sorted. Whereas I think if I was living somewhere where I was going to have to commute into London, it just becomes a bit more of a hassle. So there's all these different opportunities, and you feel like you're within proximity to kind of engage with them, is the benefit. There are some really beautiful parks and just generic green spaces throughout London. I think it's something like 40% of London is a green space. And the facilities in general are really nicely maintained. You know, you'll see tennis courts, wild swimming. I see lots of roller skaters going around because the pavement that goes through the park is so smooth that you've not really got to worry like that you're gonna fall off or like hit bumps, which is really nice and not necessarily consistent. But there's so many different kind of activities that happen. Like one time I was sat in the park waiting for a friend, and kind of circus performing society or whatever was there with kind of slack ropes doing tight roping, and that's not something I've generally seen in other UK parks. Kind of this variety of activities and this real use of the parks for like social engagement. Again, if you do want to visit the rest of the UK, it's very well connected to London because of all the train stations, and also because of St Pancras International. Getting into Europe is quite simple. You've got so many trains going so many places. But yeah, having that really well connected hub means if you want to visit family, if you're from the UK, it becomes a lot easier than if you're in somewhere particularly badly connected, where the trains, maybe you have to come into London to get back to where you're from anyway. If you've not been to London before, you can do some of the more tourist type activities for the first time. There's so much on it, you know, musical theatre wise. You can go to the London Eye, you can go see Big Ben. All of these kind of activities you can kind of just work in throughout a couple of months, maybe do one activity, do another activity, and because it's more spaced out than when you maybe come for like a week or a weekend, you're going to be able to enjoy those activities more, maybe explore a little bit more, and I think it's just a generally nicer exploring experience when you're not kind of feeling that time pressure. If you are considering PhDs outside of the UK, one thing to remember is the PhD that you do in the UK is one of the shortest. It's 3 to 4 years, and being much shorter means that you're able to still get to the same level as the ones which are longer, but you can finish that PhD and maybe move on to a postdoc, maybe move on to employment, and you're going to be ending up with a much higher paying role sooner. With the kind of variety of universities across London, there's going to be a lot of PhD students kind of floating about. And while it can be difficult to meet and interact with them, once you do meet them, you've kind of got this access to, okay, so I met someone at this conference, and then you see them again at another conference, or maybe they're actually from your uni and that's the first time you met them. But you kind of have all of these people that you can have kind of really meaningful conversations about your research with really close. And because you're going to more conferences, you're having more opportunities to engage with. The academics are usually some of the best. Obviously every university has really talented academics, and it can depend on research area, but because London has so many different research areas supported in this one area, it means that you have quite a lot of academics, and if someone wants to move fields, it can be more easy because they don't necessarily have to relocate. There's also a couple of disciplines which are only really supported in London within the UK. So having access to that, or having access to postdocs who are really experienced in a particular field, can be really beneficial. If you like working in coffee shops, there are so many, and I'm not really a coffee person, but the people that are say that they're some of the best. You might find really good sushi place. So like the quality of places can be really good because there are so many. What tends to stick about business-wise tends to be some of the best. Again, London is so massive. It's not really. It's more like several cities all kind of jumbled up together. So you've got different areas which have got different personalities in themselves, you know, maybe they don't really fit with you, maybe you want to move to a different area, you kind of have that opportunity if your budget allows. So it kind of, because there's such a variety, there's always something new to go and see. In my opinion, moving to London from another area of the UK sometimes feel like you've moved to an entirely different country, because there's so much kind of embedded culture that you get to experience for the first time. There is a lot of PhDs that get posted on stuff like jobs.ac.uk. For London, London-based stuff tends to be very common, just because of, which means that you can kind of think, I want to move to London, and then work from that as a starting point and look for PhDs in London. When I was looking for PhDs, it was kind of, you know, a little bit hectic, because you might be like, okay, well, if I search by location, do I include this location? Do I include that location? By searching London-based ones, you tend to get like a couple to consider. You also will be able to find kind of rarer ingredients. You might find specific cooking equipment, because there's so many cultures in London. They all kind of need shops that cater to that. So you can find some stuff that you might not have used before. You might find like frozen bao buns or whatever it may be, and there's just such a big variety of that stuff. Especially if you're someone who's vegan or vegetarian, there can be a lot more variety in shops that you can go to and businesses that you can engage with that kind of meet your ethical needs. That's kind of all I had to say on each of those different benefits. I'm going to do a video which is like the cons of London, but the main benefit of living in somewhere like London is just the variety. If you want something, it tends to be out there and you can go get it. I hope that helped. Like and subscribe if you found it helpful or you're interested in seeing more stuff like this. Goodbye.